Something unusual is happening in Lahore, Pakistan's cultural capital, a city that spent nearly 8 decades repainting its identity after partition, is now slowly putting some of that old paint back on the walls. In Lahore today, Rehman Gali is becoming Ram Gali again. Islampura is going back to Krishan Nagar. Mustafabad is returning to Dharampura. And Babri Masjid Chowk is once again officially Jain Mandir Chowk. Now think about that for a second. This is Pakistan, a country that after 1947 systematically erased Hindu, Sikh and Jain markers from public memory. Entire neighborhoods were renamed, temples disappeared, history is rewritten. So what changed? Is Pakistan suddenly rediscovering its multicultural roots? Is this Lahore trying to reclaim a lost identity? Or is this simply image management by a state still accused globally of persecuting minorities? And perhaps the biggest question of all, what does Pakistan's most powerful man, Asim Munir, think about all this? Because this is the same man who publicly declared just last year that Pakistanis must teach their children how they are different from Hindus in every possible aspect of life. So is Lahore quietly challenging Pakistan's own ideological foundations? Or is there an identity crisis within Pakistan almost 80 years after partition? Let's dive into this. Before August 1947, Lahore was one of the great shared cities of the subcontinent. Hindus, Sikhs, Muslims, Jains lived, traded, built this city together. And the streets reflected that layered identity. There was Ram Gali, Krishan Nagar, Lakshmi Chowk, Jain Mandir Road, Dharampura. These were not just names on signboards. They were markers of who built Lahore. Then came partition, one of the bloodiest migrations in human history, ripped through Punjab. Millions crossed borders. Lahore's Hindu and Sikh populations were pushed out almost overnight. And once the people disappeared, the names began disappearing too. Krishan Nagar became Islampura. Ram Gali became Rehman Gali. Jain Mandir Chowk turned into Babri Masjid Chowk. Temple Street was renamed Hamid Nizami Road. Slowly, systematically, old Lahore was painted over. But now, as I said, something remarkable is happening. Lahore is bringing many of those names back officially. At least 9 locations have already been renamed, with more under review. The move has been approved by the Punjab cabinet, led by Maryam Nawaz, daughter of former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. Now, this project falls under Lahore's Heritage Area Revival Initiative. This was launched in 2025 with a budget reportedly running into hundreds of millions of Pakistani rupees. More than 15 roads, neighborhoods and public squares are being reviewed under this. But here's the fascinating part. For many Lahoris, these names never really disappeared. Older residents continued calling places like Ram Gali and Krishan Nagar in everyday conversation. The state changed the signboards. The people often didn't change their memory. So in many ways, Lahore is not discovering something new. It is officially acknowledging something that survived underground for decades. And buried inside this story is a contradiction that says a lot about Pakistan itself. Take Minto Park, now known as Greater Iqbal Park. Before partition, this was one of the great sporting and cultural hubs of undivided India. Indian cricket legend Lala Amarnath trained there. Pakistan's own Inzamam-ul Haq sharpened his game there. Legendary wrestlers like Gama Pehelwan fought in its akhadas. The Shahra celebrations were once held there by Lahore's Hindu community. Then in 2015, much of it was demolished during an urban redevelopment push ordered by then Punjab Chief Minister Shehbaz Sharif. Historians protested, cricketers objected, but the demolition went ahead anyway. And now comes the irony. Years later, Nawaz Sharif's political camp is talking about rebuilding exactly what his brother Shehbaz Sharif's administration tore down: the cricket grounds, the akharas, the shared memory of pre-partition Lahore. In many ways, this entire heritage drive feels like Pakistan arguing with its own past. But let's ask the uncomfortable question here. Is this really about heritage, or is this about optics? Because restoring a few old street names does not erase the larger reality Pakistan faces when it comes to minorities. Forced conversions, attacks on temples, discrimination against Hindus, Sikhs and Christians. These are not isolated allegations. They are documented by international reports and rights groups. And the demographic story tells its own tale. At partition, Hindus made up roughly 15% of Pakistan's population. According to Pakistan's own 2023 census, that figure is now down to about 1.6%. Look specifically at Lahore. Before partition, Hindus and Sikhs together made up nearly 40% of that city's population. Today, that number is estimated at less than 1%, with only a handful of functioning temples left. And that's the contradiction that Lahore cannot escape. You cannot celebrate Ram Gali on a signboard while the communities that once lived there have virtually disappeared. And that brings us to the most politically explosive part of the story. Asim Munir, the most powerful man in Pakistan today. Just last year, Munir openly invoked the two-nation theory, the ideological foundation of Pakistan itself. In a public speech, he declared that Pakistanis are fundamentally different from Hindus in religion, customs, traditions. He even urged parents to teach this distinction to their children. So here's the obvious question. Does Pakistan's army establishment truly support this heritage revival? Does Asim Munir know that Ram Gali is returning in Lahore? That Islampura is once again being called Krishan Nagar? That Babri Masjid Chowk is officially Jain Mandir Chowk? Because if this revival genuinely continues, it quietly challenges decades of state-sponsored identity building in Pakistan. And that is what makes this story bigger than just road signs. This is not about names, it's about memory, about identity, about whether Pakistan is finally willing to acknowledge that Lahore was never built by one community alone. Will Lahore genuinely reclaim its layered civilizational past, or will the same establishment that once erased these names eventually slam the brakes again? This is Times Access, where global stories meet India's perspective. Click on the bell icon to subscribe, because the next big global shift will have India at its center.